Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Wisdom in Christ podcast. As you guys know, my name is Dallin Anderson, and this is my little brother, Caleb Anderson. Today, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, as well as who knows all what we're going to talk about today. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I was super excited to do this podcast with you a couple weeks ago, and we just weren't able to do it that day, so super happy to have you here today. So Caleb, few people know, well, quite a few people actually do know because of my other YouTube channel, High Altitude Investing, that you are the original reason I got into Bitcoin. So how did you personally hear about Bitcoin, and can you tell me kind of the story there?
Well, it was like a Watch Mojo video or something.
Watch Mojo?
Yeah, you know Watch Mojo? It has all those cringy top 10 videos.
Yeah.
Well, I was just on YouTube, I was probably 13 or something. And I see this video that's top 10 weird facts about Bitcoin.
And how old are you now?
I'm 23.
23. Okay, that's what I was thinking. So this was 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah. It probably was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm just this little guy, on YouTube and watching Minecraft videos. And apparently YouTube decides to recommend me this video. And I watch it and I thought it was weird because they were talking about people losing money on their hard drives and stuff. And guys digging through trash to find their Bitcoin.
To find their Bitcoin on hard drives.
Yeah.
You're like, why would they do that? Or
yeah.
But did it explain how it was valuable really to you?
No, it didn't. The video didn't really explain very much. And so I guess what happened, and I think you told me later as well, that I went and just told you about the video. There's this weird internet money, Dallin. It's called Bitcoin. I don't know what you remember.
Yeah, and you told me that you could mine it with your computer.
Yeah.
That it was able to be mined with your computer.
Right.
And that's when I looked at you dead in the face and said, that sounds like the biggest scam I've ever heard in my life. Or maybe I said, that sounds like a scam, Caleb. I was pretty...
He was worried for me.
Yeah, I was pretty concerned about, your mental sanity, or at least what you had been exposed to.
Yeah. And then I don't remember really anything about Bitcoin until you started talking about it more and more afterwards.
Okay, so what I did afterwards was I was okay, my little brother told me about this thing called Bitcoin, and I did a little bit of research at that time, and I actually started to look into it just a little bit, and but I didn't really know that much about it.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I'm listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, working at the Marriott Hotel, mopping floors one day, and I'm listening to Andreas Antonopoulos. Do you know who that is?
I don't. He's probably one of the more OGs.
He's one of the older, way back in early Bitcoin days. He was kind of
the early cypherpunk type libertarian.
Okay, so definitely he was super about Bitcoin from a political view.
Yeah, from a libertarian standpoint, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I'm listening to him talk to Joe Rogan about Bitcoin, and I'm listening to this podcast, and I have a little bit of income, and I realize that I need to buy some of this Bitcoin because he got me all excited about it. So that's when I bought my first Bitcoin, was in 2016, or 2015, actually. 2015, when it was bottoming out, nobody cared about it and stuff, which was probably about 6 months after you had told me.
So it would have been...
6 months to a year or so after you told me.
Yeah, so it would have been 8 or 9 years ago then, probably. I was a little older.
Yeah. But, okay, yeah. When you told me about Bitcoin and stuff. So basically... Then I get into it kind of heavily, huh?
Yeah. Then you're talking about it, and then I think 2016, because of you, then I buy Bitcoin. Yeah. Because I was making money off of piano teaching or something, and I was just why not put it all in?
In 2016?
I think it was 2016.
I remember it was before the pump, before the first pump, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I put money in there, and I I think it was in Coinbase. And I remember like a year later in 2017, I like walked into school one day and like checked my phone to see how much it was worth. And because I'd bought like 1.38 Bitcoin, my Bitcoin was worth like $30,000. And I remember just thinking like, I'm 16 years old and I've got $30,000.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like almost nobody does that really.
Yeah.
So how did that feel? What was it like to make your first 30K?
I think that I have luck. I don't know if I just lucked out with a personality that's this way or some other character trait, but I just didn't think, like, I thought it was amazing, but it also just didn't hit me very strongly. So I think I'm like a natural born hodler because I held through all that, and I held through the second bear market. I held all the way through. So like I just held and didn't think anything of it really. Because I do remember thinking like probably in 10 years it'll be worth even more. But
yeah. So for you, like what interests you about Bitcoin now? Like why? Because like you're still in it. You're still invested all these years later. It's at like $50,000+ per coin right now as we speak.
Right.
So like what about Bitcoin fascinates you?
So as I got a little bit older and I moved out, I started running into money problems in my life. I was like, it's hard to make good money at a job. And even if you do make good money at a job, it's hard to enjoy a job. There's lots of jobs that aren't very fun. And so I was working at Walmart and I decided to study. I was like, I'm going to figure out what money is. And so I got into like Robert Breedlove and I got into his What is Money podcast. I watched a lot of Michael Saylor videos. I watched a lot of podcasts on economics generally. We had lots of books. And what interests me about Bitcoin is that it's kind of like a objective standard for money that's kind of like enforced by math. And so it's what interests me a lot about it is that it's has a lot of strong attributes of being like unbreakable and difficult to control. And there were political things too that I like about it because I was a little bit more libertarian then. So that's what interests me about Bitcoin.
So basically that you can have like an ideal, but it's not just an ideal, like a set of standards or principles of what money should look like, how it should function. Like not a perfect money, but way better than what we have. And that Bitcoin represents that. It represents like a more perfect money.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. That's how I see Bitcoin is that compared to things like, the fiat money that we're under, Bitcoin really has a lot of attributes that make it more desirable as a way of like storing your money long term. And eventually, if we're able to build on top of it really well, I'm kind of more of the Bitcoin maxi mindset. But so I'm interested in things of like Lightning networks and like building on top of Bitcoin. And so like if we're able to do that, if we're able to build on top of Bitcoin as a technology and fix some of the trade-offs that it has, because it's really stable and really powerful, but as we know, it's got limitations as far as like making small payments all the time.
Micro payments and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if we can build over these limitations, then you believe that Bitcoin could be something that really becomes central because of what it is and what it represents and how it functions. And so basically, like you're kind of you're like into Bitcoin because you believe in it. Like you actually believe in what it represents, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that how you describe it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm into Bitcoin because I think it's like an ideal form of money, like we're talking about, and that it can help with some of the incentive structures that things like fiat money and central banking have created in our current society. So because nobody can control it, nobody can print it, then it's kind of like a fair money. It's like everyone has access to this thing. It's like a neutral money across borders, across power structures, across hierarchies. Everyone can access this form of value, and nobody can sort of dominate it and hold it as like a club over another group of people.
Like a way to control or to have power over other people through the financial systems or through the monetary systems.
Right.
So basically, also, though, Bitcoin gives a lot of freedom to the user, but then it also has these downsides of being somewhat public. But like, do you just kind of view any issues with Bitcoin as something that because the technology is so important, kind of like the internet, that we're going to find a way to overcome anything that's kind of slowing it down from progressing? Like, is it important enough to us?
I think that I don't know that we're definitely not guaranteed to solve like the problems. And so like I don't see it as inevitable that Bitcoin will succeed. But I do think that a lot of the people that are trying to make it work have a good mindset. Like they are trying to fix the problems with it.
And send it the direction that they believe will be the most fruitful for everybody that's in the community and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what do you think, like, from here, like, are you just going to hold? Like, are you just like holder for life? Like, do you ever plan on spending any of your Bitcoin? Like,
so
what?
I did pull out just a little bit when I got to be like 20 and 22 years old. And that was nice to be able to have kind of that base money that I could draw from when I needed it. But for the future, I am accumulating again. And so I'm trying to make enough money that I can provide for my needs while still putting it siphoning a little bit of that into Bitcoin, because my long term on Bitcoin is bullish. My long term, like, especially like once you get past 4 to 5 year range, I'm always just like, buy. If you're thinking at that level, buy. If you're thinking at the level of like 6 months or a year, then I'm less certain. And I don't like to recommend people who want to get into it just to make a quick buck. Like I tend to be more like, hey, if you're going to buy Bitcoin, realize it's going to work. You're going to succeed in the long run because it's a desirable and necessary technology. But don't jump in headlong and put all, sell your house and put your life savings into it for a 6-month idea. That's generally my mindset.
So also basically, like, for you don't want to take any money out now. You're looking at how do I keep as much as I can in and look at this over the course of multiple years instead of I'm just here to buy and try to sell like a few months later or whatever.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's cool. So Bitcoin is super cool, super exciting. You and I both love Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm probably a lot more into altcoins and, I'm a lot probably more interested in shorter term cycles than maybe you are. Yeah. But still, I definitely am not the type of person that tells people to trade like in and out in a single day.
Right.
I do target like some time frames that are more like 3 months, 6 months, but only on altcoins just for my own personal kind of strategies. And the way that I trade the markets, I trade charts. Like,
it's important
we have a different way that we look at it because you look at the market from I'm fundamental, you're very fundamentals. You look at Bitcoin from a fundamental perspective of what Bitcoin is over the long term, put money in and hold, right? And I do believe that there's value in long-term holding in Bitcoin and a lot of coins, but also like the way I look at the market is, what does this chart tell me? In the period of 1 year, 2 year, 6 month, whatever. And so,
Yeah,
we
and
do
there's
just have
nothing-
a different way that we approach.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's certainly, like, I think everyone is going to have different styles of investing. And like I was saying earlier, like, that day I walked into school and looked at my phone, and I didn't have a strong emotional reaction when I looked at my, it's a memorable day, obviously. 16 years old, Bitcoin's worth 30K. But, like,
yeah, you should be partying, man. You should be having all your friends over.
yeah, but I wasn't like
You
that.
just didn't even care, huh? You're just like,
Yeah.
oh, cool.
And so that's...
one day I'll look and it'll say 1 million.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Essentially, yeah. And so that is the approach that I tend to take to investing. There's nothing wrong with day trading or trading at different levels, as long as you're assessing your risk and you're not, taking too much risk, I feel like,
Yeah.
So, like, I think that there's multiple viable ways to look at it. And I do look at economics from a fundamental perspective, where I try to analyze what the thing is and why it, what are the objective characteristics of the thing, and how are those characteristics, how are they relating to how we value the thing? And that's how I look at Bitcoin. And Bitcoin actually, looking at Bitcoin is actually a great way to train that way of seeing with everything. Because, asking, why is this thing continuing to gain value and gain desire from so many people and gain attention? Asking that question a lot with Bitcoin kind of reveals insights into economics and that I think are unique. And so I actually kind of got into economics through Bitcoin, but then shot out of Bitcoin. And now I tend to look at, like, pretty much everything through that lens of, okay, what are the characteristics? You look at gold. What are the characteristics of gold? What make it valuable and desirable for us? What are the characteristics of certain technologies? How do they interact and relate to how we're valuing that thing?
So it opened your mind to how people actually determine real world value of things. Like silver is used in so many different things, and it's hard to mine, and it is scarce.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's quite a bit of silver and gold on the earth, they're both still scarce assets.
Yep.
And there's difficulty to mine it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's useful.
Yep.
Right? And so there's characteristics. Is that what you're referring to?
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
Characteristics that make something inherently valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's how I tend to view things. And if you're interested in studying this, like, way of viewing economics, there's a great book called The Natural Order of Money by Roy Sabag. And he actually analyzes economics from this more objective standpoint. It's a great book. And even though the book is advocating for a more gold mindset, because he's kind of a gold bug, I think that the principles he talks about apply to Bitcoin. So, yeah, that's a great way. If you want to, like, look into that, that's a good book to look into, is that book. But it interests me a lot, actually, value in general. How do we as humans determine the value of certain things? That's a really complex and interesting question. And Bitcoin is a great way to actually look into that and study that question of how is it that we as humans value or don't value certain things?
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin, one of the main reasons Bitcoin is so valuable today is because of the fact that it is extremely useful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's easy to send somebody Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an email address. So it feels like email with money. You can send somebody Bitcoin really easily. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It works well. I mean, it has a lot of problems still, like a lot of cryptos do. Ethereum gas fees. When Ethereum is really taking off and stuff, gas fees on Ethereum are so high that it's like you can't even barely do stuff without it costing a ton of Ethereum gas, right? And so there's problems on a lot of different cryptos, but fundamentally they're all pretty cool. Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They work. You can send money. You can send money, even though Bitcoin has fees. It's still less of a fee than sending from a bank to another bank from across one country to another country.
Crossing borders, the fees are...
Yeah, really high.
Yeah, so it seems that from that point of view, it seems like it'll gain more and more value.
Yeah, I think it will too. And then also, if you look at the chart, it's gonna.
And also, if we look at
if you look at that fractal, that market cycle, see, that's what I look at first and foremost.
And there's definitely a human psychological element to those cycles, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so it's not just, we can't boil it all down to just, okay, what is the thing? Because it's also how are we seeing and perceiving the thing? And that's what happens, I think. That's why cycles are caused in a lot of ways, is because of the way we're seeing an object. Technically speaking, if it's true that there is objective value, then everything is just going to have this stable objective value, like theoretically. But it is controversial to think that way. It kind of ruffles modern sensibilities about value. But as far as practically speaking, we definitely go through ups and downs as far as the way we see and have hope or despair in certain ideas. So. That's why that would be my explanation for why there are cycles. And not just that, but, there is some degree of market manipulation that happens in the United States that probably affects cycles too. But
yeah, for sure. So I think that what happens is if something has real world technology like the internet or Bitcoin, it's going to start increasing in value because it's actually helpful and actually useful for people, but also, so that's going to change people's perception of it, right? If there's a MacBook in everybody's house, then the perception of Mac as Apple as a company creating MacBooks as a product, the perception of Apple as a company is going to be positive, right? So like if everybody's using Bitcoin, it's going to have a really positive perspective. So in order for everybody to use Bitcoin, it would hopefully be actually helpful and interesting and cool and have a reason for people to use it. So if you get that real reason, plus that natural perspective and excitement that happens around new industries and technologies, then you get those things working together. And that's why you get these huge
price fluctuations,
huge increases in value because people get excited about
maybe over exuberant at times.
Yeah, they get overly excited about price and stuff.
Yep. That maybe, like with these big bull runs back, we'll refer back to 2017 again for me, when Bitcoin hit that 20K range, that was like a one-day thing, so everybody was thinking psychologically, they were thinking, there's no limit to how high this can go. It's just going to keep going. And that's like right at the moment when it falls because, okay, well, hold up. Maybe we got a little bit too excited about, we still have problems to solve as far as practically using the coin. So maybe the price is not warranted to be that high yet.
Yep. And what's interesting is it doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin or if it's silver or whatever. Like people get overly excited about it. And so that's where it's like, okay, guys, if you are interested in buying Bitcoin, understand that in the short term, there are price fluctuations. It's always better to buy in a dip. Like in my personal view, I think Bitcoin has a lot higher to go, but we've also been climbing for like months, and so just, you got to be aware that like any pullback can happen. And just aim on to buy those dips because, otherwise you're just going to get screwed.
Yeah. And I think a lot with investing is about that.
They FOMO buy a lot. And if you can avoid FOMO buying, like Bitcoin, even though it's increased right now, like if we believe that it's going to be worth its previous all-time high, then you can accumulate. The best way to accumulate isn't all at once.
Yeah.
You don't accumulate something all at once.
Yeah.
You accumulate, that's what the word accumulation means. Literally, it takes time.
Yeah.
Right? To do that.
Yeah.
And if you think like that, then okay, if Bitcoin comes back to 45,000, you can buy more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if Bitcoin goes up to 70 and then pulls back, if you're accumulating, you're averaging in over time. And if you believe it's going to be worth more than, like, say 100,000 or 200,000 per coin someday, then, you know,
and that's
accumulate.
Yeah. So that's actually a really good point. And it brings to mind one of the objections people have to Bitcoin, which is the volatility, right? There's a lot of more conservative investors that are like, oh, that's crazy. Did you see that it went from yada yada to this and whatever? You know, they're scared of it. They're apprehensive. But like, if you believe, like you say, that it has a long-term future, what happens is let's say you buy weekly. You're going to like spread all these buys across time on a chart. And the volatility of that is going to be averaged out. And so all of a sudden, it's not really volatile anymore. In a way, if you're just accumulating slowly over time, the volatility is it's almost like removed in a way.
Yeah, you don't expose yourself to the risk of buying all at one price at the possibility of it
being at
dropping
the peak
in the short term.
Yeah.
And the short term could mean 2 years, a year, or whatever. You know, it's hard to say exactly how long the short term would be. But that's the thing with Bitcoin, is when it pulls back, like, it doesn't stay down that long.
Yeah, yeah.
know?
Usually if you wait a little bit, it'll pop up again.
Yeah, it always does,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I think people are skeptical of it because it's new, it's interesting, it is volatile,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't understand it. Like,
Yeah.
they just straight up don't understand it. I think that's the biggest reason most people are skeptical of Bitcoin.
Really, it's an education problem.
Yeah, I
Like,
think so too.
If people, got a wallet and they sent some money back and forth a couple times, they kind of got a feel for what it's like to use Bitcoin, then I think it would really change their mind. I think, if there's a skeptical investor, it's almost like it would be better to just, give him some Bitcoin and then be like, try sending it. Like, see what it's like to send and receive out of your wallet, and then you'll see what this thing is, that it's not just like a scam, like
what people think.
Yeah. That it actually has a use case. So that would be my comment on that.
Yeah, I think people need to use it a little bit, and it helps to understand that Bitcoin basically is just email money. Like, you guys, it's decentralized email money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, decentralized meaning that the banks don't control it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we, the people, control Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Like, we, the people, have this thing in our hands called Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and we can send it to each other just as easy as sending an email to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if people understand that and they actually try it for themselves, they could get excited about it too.
Yeah. It might be a kind of mind-opening experience.
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing. When I first bought my first Bitcoin, it was the coolest thing ever. To see like that I had some Bitcoin, I could send it if I wanted to somebody else. And then you do get excited about the price. You do want to look at the charts because you're like, wow, this thing, and even if you're investing over the long term, so you're not checking charts every day or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's still exciting when your investments go up, it feels
it
good.
is.
It's really fun.
Yeah, you can't deny it when you see Bitcoin go up and you have Bitcoin. You're just like, oh, nice. It's a green day.
Yeah, it's like Christmas,
Yeah.
It's rolling in the cryptos.
Yeah.
Sitting on, stay humble and stack sats.
Yep.
Is that the
Yeah,
secret?
stay humble and stack sats. That's one of the sayings coined by a lot of the Bitcoin maxis. And it's true. And really, it's actually true for all investing. Humility is probably one of the most important things with investing. Because the moment you think pride comes before the fall, right? The moment you think you've got it figured out, like that you know everything, that you can't be wrong. That's the moment most likely, you know, when you're going to start to lose money because you think you've got it figured out. But markets have complexity to them, and it's never quite as simple as we would hope it to be, I feel like, you know. So that humility, I think, is important when it comes to having a good investing mindset. It just, from my personal experience, you know, I'm not as into investing as you are. I've basically done Bitcoin investing and a little bit of stock trading. But that seems to be a very important mindset, is humility.
Yeah, I think so too. It's easy to get, especially if you start making a lot of money and stuff and you've never experienced any type of a big pullback, you've never been humbled before, then you're definitely going to run into problems, you know. And also people get into leverage trading where they're like, okay, I can do 20, 30 times leverage, 50 times leverage. I've played with it before. Like, I have a friend that uses leverage trading, and he uses low amounts right now, and he's successful and he's not losing money. But
like
for the most part, people get into those things and they get so
it's probably a mindset
they get
thing.
wiped out, you know?
I think it's probably a mindset thing because I could imagine maybe small scenarios, like you said, like with your friend, where you could make a lot of money doing it. But I think you'd have to be really careful about your ego getting involved in it. And like you make one trade, make a whole bunch, then you think, wait, I could make even more. You know, and then you leverage higher and higher. That could be dangerous, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely dangerous. It's a lot of fun for like a little while, you know, and then it's dangerous real fast.
Yeah.
And you realize why people warn against it. So yeah, okay. So what got you love music too? So like you've been playing piano since you were pretty young. So like, what's your story with music?
Well, that's a good question. So music is a childhood love of mine. So as a kid, and I don't really remember this, but my mom said that I would like lay under the piano or by the piano and just listen to people play it. And so I begged my mom to start piano lessons when I was like 4 years old. And then I started.
Mom, please, I want to play so bad.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know where you want to take this exactly, but I learned piano and practiced and did piano competitions, and similar to Bitcoin, music has also been a big transformative thing in my life, I would say.
So you got really into piano really, really young, and then you got into making your own music, like writing your own music, or with your computer, or like did you just do it on the piano first? Like,
I think on the piano first.
On the piano first,
and then I did some music on Sunvox. It's kind of a not very well known piece of software, but it's made by this guy named Alexander Zolotov. And it's kind of like this tracker software where you input notes on a roll, like a tracker, and then it'll go through and it'll scrub through the tracker and play those notes. And so I learned to write some digital music that way, and then I got into doing a couple video game soundtracks and
for your brother? For
my brother, yeah, for Ben. So
we're probably going to have him on the podcast next week to talk about how he was able to quit his job, start working YouTube full time, and then eventually pay off his house without any debt. So
yeah,
I mean, he had debt for a while, but now he's debt free, right?
Yeah, now he's debt free, and so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you made some musical tracks for video games. The reason why I ask is basically just because we've been talking about music on this podcast 2 different times now, a little bit. And so it's kind of a reoccurring theme.
What kind of things have you guys gone over?
Just people's story getting into music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's just, it's just kind of something that's interesting to me. Because you play the piano like crazy. Like you're down there, you're tickling those ivories, and they're just, they sound so good. And
thank
so
you.
you've been playing dedicated a lot of piano for a really, really long time now.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's a huge part of your life, you know.
It definitely is. And my plan is actually to that's probably going to be the career pathway that I want to carve out for my life, is to teach piano. And so yeah, I'm really excited. I haven't gone to college for it yet, but the plan is to go to college and to get a master's in piano performance and pedagogy. And so that's the plan as it stands. And you're right, it's a huge part of my life. I kind of think the universe is made of music.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just
And
one
so-
big song.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard the other day that in C.S. Lewis's Narnia books, that Aslan, when he creates the world, he like sings the world into existence.
Into existence.
Yeah. And I thought that's a really cool idea.
Huh.
I think it's true that basically music is a perfect analogy for how everything is structured. Because if you think about a song, right? A song is like, it's got a theme, a melody, and then what it'll do is it'll kind of create patterns that come together with that melody. And there'll be small versions and big versions of the same pattern fractally in a song. And as you go through the song, it'll kind of play with it and change. And then it'll go through like a journey. It'll go really far out. Maybe in a jazz solo, it'll go like really far out in these keys. And people are like, what? You know?
Yeah.
But
just
then
like a
it'll
story kind of-
come back around, and then you'll be back home again. And you'll just be like,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like a story. It's like this whole living thing. It's
Mhm.
like a living thing.
yeah.
Music is, but it's also harmonic and patternistic.
It's like mathematical, but
Yeah.
also emotional. And it's like everything.
Spiritual.
Yeah.
It's like a language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music is awesome.
So
Yeah.
that's why I love music, and that's what I think is transformative. I think that a lot of people should definitely I think classical music, a lot of people think maybe it's boring, but it's super underrated. Like if you're interested in these kind of patterned fractal music, then listen to Bach fugues, because Bach fugues are like they're like perfect little packaged universes.
Little fractal patterns of musical arrays.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what I would say. That's what
So
I
what
love
are
music.
who are your favorite artists and influences and stuff? You know, modern and old.
Bach is my favorite classical composer. Beethoven is good. Chopin is good. Rachmaninoff is really good. He's a Russian composer. He's basically, like in my view, like he's basically Chopin but better. And then I really like the jazz artists, the jazz pianists. So like Oscar Peterson is a great example of that. Oscar Peterson is probably one of my favorite jazz pianists. And Jacob Collier, although he's way more than a pianist, he's kind of his own artist, but he's also one of my favorite composers. He does like jazz arrangements and these crazy whack hyper
It's
pop
really
songs.
unique stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's really strange stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's basic. If I were to joke about it, I would say it's like autistic music.
Hey, love.
But and that I say that just because he's so like meticulous about like, oh, we're gonna tune it to this exact thing, and he's always talking in his British accent like, oh, did you know the piano's out of tune and stuff. Like he's just kind of like for music nerds is what I would say.
Yeah.
Music for music nerds.
Music for music nerds. Jacob Collier.
Yeah.
Sweet. So is that the secret of life? Is Bitcoin and music? Do you just have to kind of mix those two in there together? Or
Yeah, I would say just hodl Bitcoin and play piano.
piano.
That's basically my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your plans? Okay, so you're gonna go to college and
Mhm.
stuff. That's your plans right now. you're gonna get more into music, more into Bitcoin, more Bitcoin, hopefully more Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, do you have any big other things that you're interested in, want to talk about, things that fascinate you right now?
Yeah, so we could talk about Orthodoxy if you wanted to.
Okay.
Because that's been a recent transformation for me. There's the Orthodox Church is basically like Catholicism, but the East, if I were to simplify it. And so in my life, I think everyone faces problems and struggles in their life. And Orthodoxy, just like music and Bitcoin, has been another thing. And we share this faith in Christ and stuff.
Yeah, we do share faith in Christ, and it's a pretty important part of my life, and I know it's an important part of your life. So how do you think the modern world feels about having a belief in Jesus Christ?
Yeah, so I think that it's really hard for a lot of people to understand, especially the concept of faith. There's kind of this idea that faith is just holding a belief in your mind.
Like faith in yourself, like just faith is something that's just like or do you mean like faith as a belief in your mind is just like it's only a belief?
Yeah.
They kind of minimalize it.
Yeah, I think there's kind of an idea of, I think the way I would describe it is there's kind of this idea that believing in Christ is somehow, somehow superstitious or wrong, or you're going against logic or science or whatever.
Like it's just a belief.
Yeah. Yeah. And that having faith is like this thing you have to you have to defend it against like reasonable people. And I don't think that that's true. I think that faith and reason are totally compatible. I don't see a dialectic I don't think reason competes against faith. But I think that's what's hard to understand for people as well. Like how can I have faith in Christ if I don't believe in miracles, or I don't believe in, I believe in science. I believe in so-called natural explanations for everything, And I think that's the stumbling stone that a lot of people face when they're like looking at religion and stuff. But I think that having faith in Christ and the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I think that actually that is what helps us and heals our reason, and is what is able to give us a correct view of reality and stuff like that.
So basically what the world thinks is like something that takes away from reason, you feel like completes your ability to reason or see the world.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's just a false concept. It's just the modern world just has taken faith in Christ and faith in God and made it out to be something that's kind of like you kind of have to be dumb to see it like that.
Yeah, like, they try to make
they belittle it. Yeah. That was the word. I said minimalize earlier, but I meant belittle. Mm-hmm. Like they try to belittle that kind of. So for you, was it kind of like once you started to view the world, because your story, you were an atheist at one point too, mm-hmm. for a while. I was too, myself was an atheist at one point in my life. And so when you started to have faith in Christ and believe in God, did your world start to make sense? Like, did the gears start to turn, kind of like click into place? Like, what mm-hmm. was your experience?
So my experience was, I was like, from my point of view, I was atheist because I was trying to follow the truth. And so I kind of I had this faith in standing on truth no matter what. And so I couldn't see a reason why I should believe in God. But eventually I kind of just pursued, kept looking and kept trying to understand religion and trying to get a better idea of what it meant. And, I think people like Jordan Peterson helped a little bit because you can see that he's really trying to understand religion. I don't think that he fully gets it, but he was like a good stepping stone for me to kind of like look at religion from a different perspective. And so what happened with me is that I had all these ideas in my head about what truth was, but I realized that it's not enough. Following truth is more than just having the right ideas in my head, that I actually need to live a truthful life. And so the problem that I faced in atheism was, how do I actually embody and live according to what I know is truthful and what I know is correct? And so as I tried to figure out that question, I tried different things. Like I tried Stoicism, for example. Stoicism's kind of the belief that we should be rational. We should take control or govern our minds. And that when we learn to govern our minds and take control of our rationality, then we can kind of steer our behavior in the right direction. But that didn't work for me.
It wasn't enough?
It wasn't enough. Yeah. It wasn't enough to just be rational, to try to focus on what I can and can't control. All those different Stoic ideas, they're great. There's truth in them. But it wasn't enough for me to fully embody what I felt was to practice daily what I felt was the things I needed to be doing. I was still falling into behaviors and actions that I didn't want to do. So then I tried another approach. I tried like what I would call like the expressionist approach, which is, it's kind of the opposite of Stoicism. It's like, be yourself, be authentic, just do what you feel. And that didn't work either. And so as I'm kind of going through finding, okay, this doesn't work, I find Orthodox Christianity, and I started to pray in their tradition. And when I started to pray in their tradition and ask for help outside of myself, all the other approaches I tried were starting from the self. I need to control myself, or I need to be authentic. I need to be genuine. As I asked for help outside of myself from Christ, that's when everything changed. That was when and now I'm not baptized yet in the Orthodox Church, but I'm on my way to baptism, and my life is transformed in a way I couldn't have predicted ever.
So you feel like divine help is what you really needed, because trusting in your own wisdom wasn't something that was working to be able to conduct yourself in a truly moral way, mm-hmm. or even in a way that like met like what you wanted as a standard for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel like you found that in Christ,
mm-hmm.
like through prayer,
mm-hmm.
in connecting to God mm-hmm. through prayer. And so from trying the previous beliefs of like atheist beliefs, or even just trying just purely intellectual, mm-hmm. like trying to live your life purely from an intellectual perspective, you found that your own wisdom just doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, because part of it is that like with the Stoic approach, for example, I think that's one a lot of men try. And they think that they just need to push through all the excuses, all the objections, go to the gym every day and become like this massive unit. And they have this perspective of like, I just need to have better discipline, better self-control. And it doesn't work partly because it goes against human nature. And I think it goes against that we are emotional beings as well as rational beings. And when we start to try to say that our rationality is better than our emotions, then our emotions naturally rebel against that. They don't like being told that, something or someone is better than them or superior to them. So they just fight. So all it does is create internal conflict when you try to be overly rational. And then the same is true in the reverse for like the expressionist approach of just feelings and stuff, it goes against our nature. What happens with that is we tend to act authentically, but then we later realize that our authentic, genuine self or expression was wrong or hurtful or, like even though we genuinely felt that way, like let's say with anger, we might genuinely feel mad at somebody. But to express that fully, it can be hurtful. And so like it just falls apart. It doesn't really work. But when you have Christ outside of you, lighting up and like kind of lighting up those parts of who you are, because he took on all those parts of what it means to be human. When he stepped into time and space and became man, he took up our rationality. He took up our feelings. He took up every part of what it means to be human and deified it because he's God. And so when we unite to Christ, we're uniting all of those, I guess, fallen parts of ourselves to deity, to God. And that's really where now we can be the best Stoics. Now we can be the most authentic. But we can do it because of Christ, not because of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just impossible to try to, people can sort of like make progress, but to have that true, like being yoked to Jesus Christ is different than just, improving yourself as a person, like self-improvement. And I'm all for self-improvement and self-development, but like if you're not yoked to Christ, like you're really missing out on that truly being able to obtain those virtues that you really seek in your life.
Exactly.
Like I think that without a belief in Jesus Christ, then the problem that like what I ran into personally was that I basically would construct a whole worldview based on what I thought to be true, but I had no way to sift through what was true, because without the Spirit of Christ working in you, then you're just sort of left to your own decision-making process to decide, okay, this thing's good, that thing's bad. I believe the world will, I take this worldview or that worldview. For example, without a belief in Jesus Christ, you don't believe in the return of Jesus Christ. And so then there's the problem of evil in the world. And without understanding that the fall and that evil exists in the world, and also that we're in the last days, and so there's a lot of evil in the world and a lot of good too, then it's hard to sort of make sense of these things. And if you don't believe Jesus Christ is coming back, then like you're just left up to our own human wisdom to try to survive, to try to make it, to the next phase of human existence, right? It's all just kind of left up to us.
A lot of times what actually happens very subtly is that people will say they don't believe in things like the apocalypse, like Christ coming back. But then they have all these other apocalyptic ideas now, about, nature's going to come back and destroy us, climate apocalypse or AI apocalypse. Or so what we do is a lot of times we just project different versions of the second coming, or just like that are less,
or like different versions of destruction, because we have this inherent part of us that understands that that things are building up towards like, some pretty crazy things probably going to happen in the world.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has that feeling
Mm-hmm.
that some pretty crazy things are going to happen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's either the apocalyptic or the utopia approach, and either of those without Jesus Christ are dangerous. Because if you believe you're going to make a utopia without the help of God, you're probably not going to.
It's probably just a Tower of Babel.
Yeah, you're probably really starting to dance with the devil there, right?
Yeah.
If you try to take the pure apocalyptic view without God, there's no hope.
Yeah.
We're just
terrible,
doomed.
yeah.
AI is just going to take over. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Like the whole belief that just, it's nihilism.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
nihilism.
Then nothing matters.
Yeah, nothing matters.
Yeah.
And so I think that with Christ, all of a sudden your worldview changes, and all these things that you're trying to assess the world, trying to understand the world, that didn't make any sense because you started to fall out of your own logic, start to make sense.
Yeah, it kind of unites the two ideas together under Christ. There are bad things going to happen, but there's going to be justice. There's going to be, the judge to return to help. And so it's funny, actually. It reminds me of G.K. Chesterton. He talks about
G.K. Chesterton.
Yeah, he's I like to call him, what did I call him? That comedic, sarcastic Catholic.
Comedic, sarcastic Catholic.
Yeah, something like that. He's written a lot of great books, and his books are entertaining, they're witty, but they're very insightful. And one of the things he said is that there's this idea of the optimist and the pessimist. And the optimist, both the optimist and the pessimist, see the world in these sort of warped perspectives. If the optimist has a hard time really seeing if anything bad is happening, they're the utopian.
The utopian.
Yeah. And the pessimist is just like, oh, everything sucks, And that's wrong too. Like, both perspectives are warped, in my opinion. But he says the right perspective is what he calls the patriotic perspective, which is to love the universe is the right way to see that if you really care about our lives here, then you really care if we do the wrong thing, and you're really glad when we do the right thing.
Right. Yeah.
And you're putting yourself, as a patriot, you're putting yourself on the line to try to steer it towards the right thing. You're not just sitting there being like, well, it's going to be good, it's going to be bad, like the optimist and the pessimist. You're actually putting your actions, your words on the line, and you're actively trying to, okay, I really care about this place, let's make it better. And the true way to really care about creation is through the light and eyes of a creator. And so I think that's another aspect of why it's important to have faith in Christ and have faith in God. Because he heals. If we care too much for the world, then we turn it into an idol. But if we care, if we don't care at all for the world, then what are we doing here? So through Christ, we can see that it's both. It's yes and. We care for the world and for that which is not of the world.
So it's a holistic, like you're seeing the whole thing, a complete picture, instead of trying to ignore one thing because you like one thing or ignore another thing because you hate another thing or whatever. You're able to encompass the complete picture, which goes back to what you were saying at the beginning of this podcast, or at the beginning when we started to talk about Christ, was that people don't want to believe in Christ because they believe that the reason, or God, because they believe that the reasoning mind is somehow in opposition to anything that's spiritual. But what you're saying is that with Christ, that reasoning mind is now able to actually work.
It's now we can. Yeah.
Yeah, now we can actually use it.
Yeah, with Christ's help, he took on and he's healing and has healed that reasoning part of ourselves, and so now we can reason and we can do those things. Yeah, exactly. And it's hard. It's still hard for people to understand, and I can sympathize and empathize with that. But what I would kind of say is that I think one of the most important, maybe more neutral pieces of advice I can give that's, whether you're an atheist or not, is always look for the lie in the thing. Because it seems like if you are really sensitive to where there are lies and you don't let the lie enter you don't let the lie enter your heart, and you're just very vigilant about your thoughts, your actions, and you're even by your own judgment, is this true or is this false? And if you get better and better at discerning truth from falsehood, I honestly think you end up as a Christian. but
if you're being honest and truthful about that over time, and maybe you have access to information about Christianity, excluding cultures that don't have libraries or the Bible.
Yeah, maybe in a different country you would become,
dropping my phone.
Maybe in a different country you'd become a Buddhist because there's lots of truth in that tradition, or Hinduism or some, there's truth in other traditions for sure. And so I think that if you're honest, you're going to, I'll just say it this way, if you're honest, you're going to succeed. If you have integrity of honesty, you're going to succeed. You're going to move more and more toward truth. And I really do think Christ is the truth. That's from my point of view. But, for atheists that maybe can't understand it, that's what I would say.
Is integrity is one of the magic words of life.
Yeah, exactly.
Honesty and integrity. Yeah, I think that's the reason I'm a Christian, is because of honesty and integrity. Mm-hmm. I prayed. I was an atheist. I didn't believe that I had issues. I liked religion. I liked studying about, other religions and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I had issues believing that one of them could be true. Why is Jesus Christ the truth? Mm-hmm. Right? And
what about all the other ones?
Yeah, what about all these other ones? And so the reason I came to be a Christian myself, and eventually a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, reactive and stuff, because I grew up in the church and everything, mm-hmm. was because of integrity. Because I had a conversation with my friend, and we were talking, and I had an argument against why I believed, okay, Christianity, there can't be one truth. It can't be Christianity, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And I had this big argument, a big reason why I believed this. And he just kind of said, well, you can believe those things, but I know differently. That's all he said. And I remember thinking, wow, I had put so much effort into trying to disprove this thing, and all he said was that he knows differently. Mm-hmm. And so on my way home, I was driving my car home, driving home from the city, 3-hour drive. And I just prayed. I was like, okay, I don't know if God is real and stuff. I don't know if Jesus Christ is the truth, mm-hmm. but help me see it if it is. Mm-hmm. I wasn't asking for a sign or anything, but I just asked, help me see it if it is. And then what came afterwards was a lot of experiences. Right away, I felt kind of peaceful, but I didn't really get anything right away.
Yeah.
Okay. But what came afterwards over the period of 6 months was so many personal experiences where I knew that Jesus Christ really lived on earth. Mm-hmm. And my prayer was being answered mm-hmm. through personal experience. Mm-hmm. And those personal experiences were so profound and powerful to me that I knew that Jesus Christ really walked the earth, really performed miracles, really resurrected. Mm-hmm. He really, he is true.
Yeah.
like he's a reality.
Mhm.
So I realized the reality of Jesus Christ through these personal experiences, and then the integrity came into place where I can't deny that.
Yeah, yeah.
These experiences were so profound and personal
Mhm.
that to deny that would be like lying.
Exactly.
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's for me, it was just my path to my belief in Jesus Christ came from a path of integrity.
Yeah.
Of I asked and then I started to get answers, and I can't deny those answers.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah.
to
And I
those-
think that's really fundamentally how everybody's journey is. Mine's similar. I prayed and I asked for help and I received help. My life changed. I experienced what a lot of Christians call God's grace, which is kind of his work, his labor in your heart, changing you and transforming you.
Yeah, he starts to work from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
He starts to change deep parts about you, what's in your heart. And that's what really changes behavior.
Yeah.
The reason why you can't try to just do it on your own with your own wisdom is because it's really hard to get at those deep parts of your heart without God going there.
Yeah. He's much more powerful, so he can
do it.
he can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas, it's going to be really hard yourself to try to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my journey to Christ. And it's a really important part of my life. And so, yeah.
So that's the secret of life.
The secret of life is Bitcoin, piano, and Jesus.
But not in that order specifically.
No, that was the chronological order.
But the chronological order.
But the ontological order is Christ, piano, and Bitcoin.
Piano and Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's the ontological order.
That's a good order to have things in. So, yeah, I think that a lot of people are waking up to the truth of Jesus Christ. A lot of people are starting to believe, and a lot of people are kind of saying, okay, maybe atheism isn't the way, but it's only really because we've had such a strong drop off lately. I mean, not only because, but
there's
we
definitely
do have a huge
way.
drop off of believers. A lot of people our age don't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't believe in God
Yeah.
at all. And then, so we have this huge drop off and a lot of people buying into all these kind of beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are starting to say, okay, well, that isn't working. Like what you described, it's not working. You test it and it's not
that's kind
working.
of why I say integrity is something that I think we can appeal to for non-Christians, because if you have integrity, I think you will see eventually. You will see that it just doesn't work. I don't know what else to tell you, but it just relying on yourself or relying on, the universe or the law of gravity isn't going to help you, So having just a purely naturalist approach, it's not going to work in the long run. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we should be pragmatic. I do think you need to actually do the work and figure out that it's objectively true as well. I don't think that we should just be pragmatic. I think that if we're going to follow truth and we're going to stand on truth, we're not going to start by swallowing a lie. That's just absurd. But have integrity. Sorry, my phone is going off. Have integrity and really observe, really notice what does and doesn't work. Don't deceive yourself about it.
Yeah, so I think that the pragmatic view of just believing Christianity purely from a pragmatic viewpoint, I mean, pragmatically, if we study beliefs and you go look at different places in the world, places where people have strong religious beliefs, specifically Christianity, the societies are healthier. It does pragmatically work. But the integrity part, I think first and foremost comes from from did Jesus Christ really live?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're looking for that truth, okay, did he really walk the earth? Is this a mythology in the sense that it's just something people made up, like just some little story that we made up or something? Or did he really live?
Or did it actually happen?
Did it really happen?
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then pragmatically speaking, after you know that to be true, then you realize pragmatically, oh, Christianity really does work better.
Yeah, you do.
Because you're cleaning the inside of the cup. People start changing what's inside of them. Of course, societies are going to be better. Of course, there's going to be less crime. Of course, there's going to be less of those things because you're cleaning the inside of the cup. And so people's behaviors actually change. So there's pragmatic value. But the most important thing is, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And that
did it actually happen?
Did it actually happen? Did he actually live? Like, if you're looking for truth, you have to ask yourself that. And I don't think that's found so easily just from looking at the evidence. I think you will find evidence if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
But that's really found through the Spirit. The Spirit testifies of Jesus Christ.
Right.
And that's where we get that truth of, of did he live? Did he not live? And then that's how you learn, because if you already believe the world is a certain way, if you don't believe in miracles, you're not ever going to see evidence for them. If you're going to deny anything that could have been true evidence as a result of your already decided belief.
Yeah, you'll always come up with a story for how the miracle happened naturally. If you're 100% in the kind of naturalistic philosophy, then you're always you're going to look back on Jesus and the Gospels, and you're going to have to reinterpret the Gospels with your naturalistic philosophy, and you're going to have to say, oh, well, these are stories that were developed mythologically or something, kind of like what we were talking about. And you're never going to come to understand faith in Christ by stacking up all those evidence, just more and more natural evidence. It's never going to work. So, like, for example, I studied this guy for a little while named Bart Ehrman, and he kind of tries to do that. He tries to go to the Gospels and just like take it apart and like with his naturalist presuppositions, try to find the real Jesus. And
like take out the miracle part, take out the miraculous part of it.
Yeah, take out any aspect that's not conducive with like modern science.
Like a naturalistic worldview, like if he was just a person, basically.
Yeah. And it just like it's interesting for sure. It's interesting to see like how the consequences of that philosophy, but you're actually not dealing with the fundamental problems. Like, you're coming at the text with an idea of how reality actually works, when in it's actually the reverse. Religion is about how reality works. And so Christianity, like, you can't come at it backwards. If you come at it from the bottom up that way, you can only get so far. When you realize that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are the principles by which reality is built off of, the people that reality stems from, right? That's when your perspective changes and you're like, well, of course Jesus can step into, of course the second person of the Trinity for me, or, I know we have different traditions, but can step into time and space and perform miracles. He's God. Right? It's not a problem. And then the evidence makes perfect sense. There's actually evidence that Jesus did exist, and none of the evidence that I've looked into contradicts a Christian worldview. And so you have to start from the top down in order to understand it. So really what people should do is they should compare, does my naturalism make more sense of my experiences, make more sense of science, make more sense of knowledge and all of those things? Or does God make more sense of that? And it is really true that God does make more sense of it. So from a rational perspective, that would be my my argument, is that reality is actually accounted for better via Christ. And when you understand that, then it doesn't, it's like Bart Ehrman's just like, it's like, cool, bro, but you're coming at it from liberal presuppositions that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't actually prove anything.
So it's what the problem people run into is they try to make Jesus Christ too much man, where they say, okay, he came down to earth, but they don't believe in any of the divinity. They just believe, they don't even believe he came down to the earth. They just believe he was just born. He was just a man that lived on earth, that maybe taught good principles, that maybe was a good moral teacher or whatever. He's just a man.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the problem people run into, is they try to make him too much just a man.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then in doing that, they reject the divinity of Christ. Wait a minute. This man said that he is the beginning and the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He said that he is like literally the Son of God, that he is,
Yeah, he definitely claimed,
he came here to save us, and who goes around forgiving other people's sins, you know?
Yeah.
Like if I owe you $5, it's natural for you to say, never mind, I forgive you. We don't owe that. But what if I owe you $5 and somebody comes to me and says, you're forgiven of the sin I made against you, right?
It wouldn't work for me,
Only somebody that's divine has that type
divine
of
authority
to forgive sins, to say that he's the beginning of the end, to say that he will return, to say that...
To bind and loose heaven and earth.
Yeah,
right?
To bind on earth and bind in heaven. Only somebody that is divine can do those types of things. So then you have to ask yourself, did he really live? Because if he didn't really live, then, okay, it's just a mythology. It's just a story of some guy that just a story.
And you have to believe that if you only believe, like...
you believe he's just a man, or if you believe that he was just a story, which is another common belief in today's world.
Yeah.
Then you have to then you have to look past all this stuff that's right in front of your face.
Yeah, it actually doesn't explain. Yeah,
it doesn't explain all this really, really important things that you have to kind of really grapple with,
Exactly, yeah. I would say the Bible as a whole even is not very well explained. Its existence is just, if you want to really understand the Bible, where it came from, what its purpose is, it's just not explained at all, really, by kind of naturalistic presuppositions of, the world is basically just a galaxy spinning in the middle of nowhere, like that kind of view of the only thing that is our physicalism and stuff. That kind of view, that kind of materialist or physicalist perspective doesn't explain the Bible very well. It doesn't explain. It doesn't explain. I would say it doesn't really explain our origins either.
Yeah, it kind of goes in stark contrast against, at least. Okay, so believing in natural laws and science doesn't go against religion, in my opinion.
Not at all, yeah.
In any way whatsoever. Yeah. But what does go against religion is if you already have an idea about exactly how everything came to be. And then you find something that's contradictory to that. There's this whole idea in kind of the modern scientific worldview of, we know exactly how everything came to be up until this point. They, this kind of belief.
Or they'll say, some of them will say that. Some of them will also say, well, we can never know. And they'll kind of just stick in their lane and their little provisional box of science. But they don't realize that their science and the method behind science is utilizing things that come from Christianity. So they're actually having to borrow from Christian theology in order to do science and to do, reason and logic, to believe that the world is intelligible, that it lines up to rationalism and logic. All of that stems from Christian theology. And so they want to say, well, we can never know because we can never prove it. And it's true that you can't, God isn't crackers in the pantry. You can't just go in the pantry and find him there to prove him, right? And so it's true. You're never going to scientifically show God in matter because God is beyond matter, right? But
don't you think that's kind of like what they describe that they are doing right now with particle physics and blasting particles together? Because they named it the God particle. So do you think that they are actually kind of trying to map out the physics of God in a way? Science is?
Yeah, I think that, well, that's interesting that they named it the God particle. I haven't heard of that. I do think...
the Large Hadron Collider and stuff.
Huh.
Yeah, they're blasting particles
Here's
together.
what I would say. I think C.S. Lewis is right about we naturally as human beings desire God. And so when we don't find God in God, we find God in other things. So it would make sense that, maybe some scientists want to find God in their...
Say this particle is him?
Yeah, this particle or this cognitive function that's amazing is him. There's a tendency to look for perfection in things that are not perfect. And the only thing that is perfect is God. And so that would be C.S. Lewis's argument. He argues that we need God because we desire God, that we naturally are looking for a perfect being, that if we don't find it in a real perfect being, then we'll find it in imperfect things and hold those up as idols and become ideological and fight for those things and
miss the whole point.
Yeah.
Miss the real thing. Mm-hmm. That's right there to be read. And if you open up your scriptures and start looking and reading and start learning about Christ, and you can find the real thing right there.
Right there. You can.
Yeah.
So you can walk into a church, pretty much any church, for free. You can get a Bible for free. Like, a lot of people will say religion's about money, and there probably are religions that are about money, but I will say that it's the cheapest investment I've made.
Yeah. I think it's crazy when people try to just say all religion is about money, right? That's just a blanket statement, which isn't true. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's people that take religion or take the Bible or whatever, and then they decide okay, you know what? If I say this, people will really like me. I'm going to say this, and I'll make a ton of money. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But real Christians, I feel like a lot of them aren't going to get paid. People aren't going to want to just give them money because they're telling them to change things that are hard to change.
Yeah.
So they're like not always the most popular people on planet.
Imagine the sales pitch. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to change your whole life and stuff. So
Yeah, you can't be doing all those things anymore that you're really, really in love with that are destroying your life. Yeah. You're going to have to literally pluck those out and, cut some hands off. And, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. Really, really change as a person. But it is true that his yoke is easy because it's so much it's hard
easier to accept his yoke, maybe. But once you accept it, man, he does all the pulling. It might be hard and difficult and challenging for people to maybe see why they should believe in Christ. And that is a confusing and difficult to navigate subject for sure. But once you do see it, His grace makes it a lot easier. And then it's a lot easier of a life.
Yeah, it's one of those things where people, okay, so basically if if you yoke yourself to Jesus Christ, it does mean that you are going to have to change a lot of things, and a lot of things are hard to change, and it does mean that you're going to have to like really actually grapple with parts of yourself that you've really kind of ignored previous to that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like so much easier than yourself. It's like so refreshing.
Yeah.
It's like such like a breath
it's
of
easier
fresh
than
air.
the stoic or the
or
thing I was talking
even just, you know, a breath of fresh air from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because like trying to do it on your own is so exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yes, it does take hard work, and yes, it is, you know, personal, like you do have to change things and stuff, but it's just so much more refreshing, such a relief,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from yourself. So yeah, Caleb, I think we talked about some cool things today. We talked about Bitcoin, we talked about music, we talked about Christ. I don't think we could have really talked about anything cooler than those three things. And I really appreciate you taking your time to come on the podcast here today. And I think maybe we could have some cool conversations again in the future.
I think so.
And yeah, so is there do you want to shout out your YouTube channel? Is there anything you want to
I'm currently not doing too much online right now. You can go find, I talked a little bit about like my music and stuff. You can go find my music, search Game Jam with an exclamation point. Or put Game Jam Sunvox, SUNVOX. And
Game
you can
Jam
find
Sunvox?
Yeah, you can find my YouTube channel. I've got some music there, I've got some tutorials there, I've got a couple video essays there. Haven't done much there in a while though. So
okay, sweet. Well, maybe we'll have you on the podcast again and we can talk about crypto. I bet Bitcoin's going to be pumping again. And what I really want to talk with you is we should get into a conversation about Christ again, like really like his life and for me, that's like, and also how it applies to the world. Like that's when I really started to get excited. I love talking about crypto and stuff, but it's just so true that this world needs Christ.
Yeah,
like, so badly.
For sure.
And so, yeah. So thank you for coming on, Caleb. I look forward to seeing you again, maybe on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I love and appreciate every single one of you. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share it with your friends. And I look forward to seeing you guys in future episodes. As always, peace be unto you.
Thanks for watching.
Perfect.